Good, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing today? My name is Swesha Machere. I am from BVI Consulting Engineers, and I will be your host for today. And today is a very, very exciting session. We're going to have a leadership and management talk from an industry titan, literally an industry titan, ladies and gentlemen. His name is Vishal Hariprasad. And sooner or later, we'll get to meet him and I'll be able to take you through each and every element before he speaks to us. So as you can see, today is our Youth Best Practice webinar and leadership and management. And I am so excited to take you through this. It's really going to be an exciting day. But firstly, we'd like to start off with a quote. Quality is never an accident. It is always the result of intelligent effort. And that is by John Ruskin. And I think that is to just set the tone to really show that we're intentional about what we're trying to do here and what we're trying to learn. So our plan for today, as you can see, we've got our theme, which is our leadership and management, as well as our engineering career path and the business of consulting engineering. In our agenda today, I'm going to be giving you an introduction and welcoming remarks. From there, we'll lead on to our main event, which is listening to our great leader that we have today, Vishal. And lastly, we'll end off with the Q&A. And we'll take all your questions, listen to what you have to ask. If you need to be personal, I think this is the opportunity for us to really dive in and learn something, So without further ado, let me introduce you to Vishal, all right? He is currently the regional manager of Knight Piesol Africa, as well as the managing director and chairman of Knight Piesol Pty, which is a global and project management consultancy based in Johannesburg. Vishal also serves as a chairman and director of Civil Lab, which is a leading civil engineering materials testing laboratory, which is also situated in South Africa. He serves on the board of CESA, and he actively engages projects across multiple disciplines within Africa. He leads and guides teams which unlock major infrastructure and mining projects within African development. He is truly a force to be reckoned with. And I promise you, you are here to listen to so much and gain so much from him. Without further ado, I'd love to really introduce Vishal. Hi, Vishal, how are you doing today?
Hi, Swesha, thanks for the wonderful welcome and the great introduction. I feel like a celebrity now and I'm doing fantastic.
You really are. So soak it all in.
Will do. Okay, great. Well, once again, thank you for the intro and for CESA for inviting me to the YPs to speak to you all today. I'm not a big one for presentations. I think the conversation is more important than what you see on the screen. But I know some of you like to see some of these slides. I've put up a few slides, but really what I want to do is have a conversation with you all. I've been asked to talk about leadership and management, give you the benefit of my experience and my journey to where I am today. And also just to chat to you a little bit about your career path, being an engineer, working in the engineering field. So I'm going to quickly pull up my little presentation. Okay, so as Swesha said, I am the regional manager, which is an internal title for Group CEO for Knight Piesol Africa, or Knight Piesol Southern Africa, as we tend to call it. And just an intro on Knight Piesol. Knight Piesol is the oldest consulting engineering firm in South Africa. We're actually 101 years old, and one of the oldest employee-owned consulting engineering firms on the continent and in the world. And I consider it a great privilege and a great honor to be leading this business in Southern Africa at this current point in time. An exciting time in the industry as well. So as I said, today, I want to take you through just a few things. An intro, I'm going to tell you who I am. And I don't like talking about myself too much, so that'll be very brief. And then talk about your engineering, your career path. I used to lecture part-time at university 15, 20 years ago, and oftentimes encountered lots of young, eager minds, like most of you online today, who wanted to make their career in engineering, not really knowing what that meant. The reasons for them getting there were so different. This is getting to university or tertiary education. You know, some of them had a lifelong passion. Some of them had been motivated by what they'd seen on television or what they'd read in the newspaper or on various other publications. Some of them have had role models within their own families or in their broader communities that inspired them. And others just ended up doing it because they thought it would challenge them and would be a challenging career to pursue. Various reasons. But I think in figuring that out, we've got to ask a couple of questions. And the first one is, who are you? And I'll delve through that a little bit when we go to that point. Who do you want to be? We sometimes don't ask us that question because we sort of just tend to fall into line, or we follow an example that we've seen without really asking ourselves who we really want to be. And the more important question is, why do we want to be that? Why do you want to be that? It's a very important question to ask because it goes to the heart of what makes you ultimately successful in the career you pursue, or what often leads to people making changes midway through their career or somewhere down the line. And then finally talk about what can you really be? When you've answered those questions, what can you really be? That is where the magic lies. And then in owning your career path, talk about how you end up where you are meant to be at any point in time, and how this might not be where you are destined to be. And I'll talk about that a little bit, and I think it's quite important. So, who am I? As you've heard, my name is Vishal Hariprasad. I'm an engineer. I'm a leader by virtue of the roles I hold, the positions I occupy, but the influence I have. I'm a mentor, and you'll see a key theme through the chat we have this today is mentorship, very important. But more importantly, I am a father and a husband. I consider those last two jobs my most important role in my life. My career, I had a bursary with the CSIR back in the 90s. And I did my third and fourth years of undergrad civil engineering down in KwaZulu-Natal. I'm a Durban boy and studied at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and then joined the CSR as a bursar in the 90s. And I joined the division at the time, which was called Transpotec, which was their transportation division. An interesting tidbit, how I fell into engineering at university is a very interesting story. When I was in high school, I was quite the outspoken type. I wanted to be a journalist. I thought I had aspirations of getting into politics. And this was late 80s, early 90s, sort of pre-94, but when the movement towards democracy was beginning to happen. So there was, even though at the time I couldn't see my career outside of South Africa, it was planting the seeds in my mind, what was happening around me in the environment, planting the seeds of a potential career path. And I ended up going into engineering, as it turns out, because I had quite an aptitude for maths and science in high school, but I hadn't considered it as a career up until I got to my final year of high school, and then got to meet some engineers who had just completed their undergrad and some very senior guys who had been in the industry for a while through interaction within my community. And that inspired me to get into the field. However, it hadn't been a lifelong passion. And I think there are a lot of stories like that of how we fall into a career or how we end up pursuing a certain field of study. But I completed my degree and I joined the CSR. And I remember the first day I was a Durban boy and had a bursary which had a work requirement. And upon completing my degree, I was flown up to Pretoria and met at the airport along with 2 or 3 other grads who were in the same position as I was. Met at the airport by an elderly gentleman named Mr. Leon Kraus, picked me up in an old Mercedes that he had, smiled, shook my hand, drove me to the place that we were staying at, and then said to me, I will see you in the office tomorrow. And that was my introduction to the CSR. I spent a couple of years there. It was a fantastic, fascinating place to be in because it was also going through a lot of change itself as an organization, having been a purely research, government-funded organization in the past to transitioning into competing a bit more out there in the open market and trying to find value beyond just research, and continues to do that today. I spent a couple of years there working under some excellent engineers, scientists, technicians, technologists, and highly competent and educated people. So CSR is full of highly competent people. And through the course of that, I had to ask myself a couple of the questions that I said we'd ask a bit later. One of which was, why am I here? What is engineering and why am I doing engineering? And through that journey, I actually realized that I needed to get into the engineering world proper, as opposed to the research world. And I managed to get myself seconded out of the CSR to a company down in KZN called MMC Engineers, Millard Mazibuko Consulting Engineers, who did a lot of engineering work related to roads and infrastructure down in KZN and across the country. Fascinating journey from undergraduate engineering training to research, then going into engineering proper, and working with a very small company where you ended up doing everything. A few years out of that, I had left CSR and MMC and then joined a company called Goba, whom you might know today as Hatch. The journey of Goba, a company called Kiwi Stain, merged to form GMKS, became Hatch Goba, and then Hatch. And I worked there for a number of years under some highly competent engineers, really cut my teeth into engineering proper, and was my first experience in a larger consulting engineering company, with all the excitement and the challenges that come with that journey. And as the years went by, I ended up joining Knight Pisold in KZN as a infrastructure/roads engineer. And I've remained here ever since. And I'm now going on 19 years, 18 to 19 years with the company. And I'm now the CEO of the company. And it's a fascinating journey to talk to people about. And I'm happy to chat to you about that in more detail a bit later. But through that whole journey, the underpinning constant through that was constant engineering and learning on the art of engineering. When you leave university, you leave with a passport to the engineering world, whether you are at the University of Technology, a normal university, whether you are in other fields, you leave with the passport to get into engineering. But actually what you realize when you get into it is that you need to now start from the bottom and build your way up. And through my journey at the various organizations that I've worked in, that continuous learning has never stopped. And that's a very important lesson for young engineers, scientists, technicians, technologists, that learning never stops. You evolve, you learn good and bad things, good and bad habits, but the learning journey never stops. And even when you are the CEO of a company, you probably, every day is an examination, and you learn on an ongoing basis new skills and new ways of working. My career then progressed into a little bit of management. As you put your hand up for more opportunities, as you demonstrate the willingness to wanting to take on more responsibility, and as you demonstrate a hunger for learning, you tend to get given what you ask for. And it's important, you be careful what you ask for, because you might just get it. And I found myself getting into managerial level positions fairly quickly because of the nature of my inquiring mind and my willingness to take on responsibility. And my progression through essentially Knight Pisold, where I've termed it engineering and management, went from section manager, regional manager, then operations director, and then managing director. And through that journey, the engineering and management journey, constantly learning from others around me, and learning from examples both within the business, of which there were plenty, and learning from examples from outside the business, which of course there always is. And the one thing you'll find about engineers, and I think this applies generally to most of them, is that they're always willing to learn, to share knowledge, always willing to teach, always willing to take people along. Some of the older school engineers, would be more, would gravitate more to those that have more of an inquiring and willing mind, those that are willing to ask. And some of the younger engineering level management staff, they seek out talent and they seek out an inquiring mind to teach. So but generally speaking, there's always that willingness to teach and then willingness out there in the engineering sector in South Africa. And I think it's a very important aspect of growth, which is seeking out mentors out there and seeking out people that have experience and skills and gleaning from them as much as you can. It's absolutely crucial to grow. And then in terms of progression into senior management and leadership, as I've said earlier, I am the group CEO of Knight Pisold Southern Africa. And the Knight Pisold company in Southern Africa has offices in South Africa in a couple of provinces, but also in Namibia, in Zambia, in Botswana, in the DRC, in Eswatini, Madagascar, and Mauritius. So what you find out fairly quickly is that finding commonalities in the difference, finding the commonality in different cultures is very important to leading a diverse business that's not just a country-specific business. And that process required a lot of growth and learning, which is still ongoing for myself in driving our business forward. I'm also the chairman of Civil Lab, which is a civil engineering testing laboratory, which has various directors and shareholders from different companies, which requires a set of skills and also sit on CESA as a board member. This whole journey of my career, which I've condensed very quickly here, has always been underpinned by my desire to constantly grow and my desire to constantly expand my knowledge. There is the formal expansion of your knowledge, and there's the informal. The formal, of course, is education, it's studies, it's your training, it's your certification, and so on. The informal, which I think is as important, is, as I said earlier, the mentorship side, the hunger to learn, the willingness to ask questions. And I mentioned a bit later on in this presentation that that's so important to constant growth. And it's so important for you as a young engineer or scientist or technician, technologist. It's so important that you always keep that inquiring mind and that curiosity about you, that you never get jaded, even though when there's a deadline to meet, when you're having a rough time, or you're having a challenging relationship with the person you're working with or person you're reporting to, you've got to maintain that inquiring mind, that curiosity to uncover things and to understand things, because that will always be a key requisite to growth. And obviously, along with that is hard work. There is no secret to success. If there was one secret, it would be hard work. And hard work doesn't mean 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. Hard work means giving your all, putting your full effort into whatever you're doing and making sure that you give 100% to any task that you undertake. Continuous education, an inquiring mind, and seeking mentorship, that has been key to me in my journey as an engineer, now as a leader in the business, and ensuring that as much as we take in over our career and our journeys, we give it, and you seek to transfer that back, and you seek to motivate others around you to learn from your experiences so that they can build on that with their own journeys going forward. So that's me in a nutshell, who I am. As I said, I don't like talking too much about myself because the story is not about me, the story is about you. But if you take anything away from my journey, it's that the only limit we set is the limits we set for ourselves. And we're always going to be setbacks. There are always going to be challenges. Life is never a straight line. There's always ups and downs. But if you stay focused on what you're trying to achieve and you stay true to yourself, you will succeed. And if you persevere, you will achieve success. What that success means to you is going to depend very much on on asking a few questions. And
Sorry,
I think, yes.
Just to, praise you for that lovely introduction and what you've just mentioned. As we continue with your slides, would you mind putting it into full presentation mode so we can really get the full magnitude of what it is that you're showing us? Thank you so much.
Yeah, I didn't realize it. I thought it was.
Oh, no problem.
Let me try and remedy that. Give me a second.
While Vishal is trying to remedy that, I just want to remind everyone that we do have a Q&A and chat box. So if you do have any pressing questions that you feel that you have the burning desire to be answered, please feel free to post them. And yeah, we'll definitely answer them when we have the time.
Is that better, Swesha?
We actually can only see you right now. Try sharing. So you're currently showing up perfect.
All right, apologies for that. Technology sometimes is not my best friend. Okay, so as I said, I've been through this. I've told you who I am, done. So it's key that we understand who you are. You understand who you are. And for me, as I say to my teams and the teams I speak to quite often, we're all individuals. We're all very different. We all have different ingredients that have gone into the recipe that has shaped us who we are at any point in time. Those are various things. Some of them could be the values that you hold dear, the values that you have grown up with over time, with your family and so on, your upbringing, the family environment you've been in, the environment you've been exposed to around you, the role models you've had around you in your career and in your life. All of those collectively actually form the nucleus of defining who you are. And it's very important that you do take the time to understand, especially in this fast-paced world of driving for success and results and outcomes, that you do take the time to understand who you really are, to understand what has made you, and not to negate or downplay your background. I find that, especially as I work across multiple countries, where a lot of the cultural norms and values are very different to the ones that I grew up with, that I often have to ask this question, firstly of myself, but also ask the staff that I work with, or the people that I work with, to ask these questions of themselves, to really understand who people really are. And I think it's a fundamental question that we all should be asking of ourselves all the time. Understanding who we really are and what makes us, what's gone into making us who we are, is very key in understanding where we want to go. Because without trying to sound like a therapist or a psychologist, which I'm certainly not, I think the psychology of understanding who we are as an individual and what has gone into making us who we are today is so important in charting our success and our way forward in the future. So asking that question, going through that process is very important, because when you take all of that, then you need to ask yourself, and I'm assuming on the line we have engineers mainly, who do you want to be, right? And in the context of an engineering career, and I've only put a few examples here, but in the South African environment, there's the engineering level private consulting engineer, or engineering in the private consulting space. There's the public space, which is quite topical these days around being an engineer and doing engineering. And there's the management role in all of that. And ultimately, the question of who you want to be is so important, but inextricably linked to understanding who you really are. Some people are very driven by money. Some people are very driven by fame. Some people are mad. Mad meaning making a difference. When you understand who you are, you understand who you want to be, or you're in the process of understanding who you want to be, and ask the question why you want to be the person you think you want to be, you then begin to understand how your career path should take shape. I know that in South Africa especially, but this is common around the world, of late, certainly in the last 10, 15 years, with all these buzzwords of state capture and so on, there's been a lot of talk around, tenderpreneurs, engineering profession being tainted by perceptions of corruption. We've had some in companies being named and so on. People chasing wealth, people chasing a quick buck, people chasing money. And a lot of times when you actually delve into it, when it's not something that has happened to someone, but something that someone has done, you begin to understand when you look into the background and you look into the motivations that that's not a surprise. That type of person, where they've come from, what has motivated them, what they tried to be, it's not a surprise why they've ended up getting into that line of thing. But I think fame, fame being in the context of being recognized. I wanted to say notorious, but that sounds a bit sinister, but being recognized out there, being seen as an expert on the technical side, being seen as a leader, both within your organization, but also within the industry, that drives a lot of people. And, there's nothing wrong with wanting to seek a little bit of fame or limelight if you use it for the right purpose. And, at its heart, engineering, of course, as a profession, is the profession which has the greatest potential to actually make a difference in the lives of people in communities, in countries, in cities, and so on, because of the impact of what we do. So understanding who you are, who you want to be, and understanding why you want to be that is so key in figuring out your path going forward. I'm not trying to tell you exactly what your career path in your organization needs to be, or how you need to choose the organization you're in and so on. Those are journeys you need to go on. What I am asking you to do is to be very clear in your mind in asking yourself a few of these questions and assess where you are, and assess where you want to be, and assess why your motivations to get to where you want to be, what those motivations are and why. And use that introspective process to actually start charting your career in the direction that you want it to be. Because ultimately, you can be anything you want to be. I put up here 10 pictures of engineers that have actually changed the world. You see Elon Musk there, we all know him. Nikola Tesla, there's Wozniak, there's even our Amazon guy. These are engineers who've changed the world through their inventions, their discoveries, their role in molding and shaping society and shaping the way we think. And as an engineer, each and every one of you have a career path to end up doing things that can change the world. You're not limited by where you are. You're not limited by what you've grown up seeing. You're not limited by what others' experiences have been and what it's defined. You are only limited by your thinking. And it's a very important aspect for me to talk about, because the moment you lose those restrictions in your mind as to what you can be as an engineer, you begin to realize that there are no limits. And you can be anything you want to be, you can achieve anything you set your mind to if you structure your thoughts very clearly and you have a clearly defined goal to where you want to go. You can change the world. You can certainly make a difference. And every little step that you take, be it on a project, be it in your company, be it in educating yourself, makes a difference, and you can make a difference in every step of your journey. You can generate wealth. You can definitely generate wealth for you and for others, both directly and indirectly. And there is no limit on that. Engineers can do that. You can certainly leave a legacy. It's a very important thing for me, certainly in the way I run Night Pisold and the way we engage with our teams. Leaving a legacy behind us is so important because being a firm that's 101 years old, we've had the opportunity to build relationships with clients and with communities over decades. But ultimately, the real test of whether we've made a positive difference, whether or not we've left a legacy. And that legacy is not just the projects we do, it is the relationships we build, and it is the impact of what we've done and how that makes a difference in communities and with clients and with colleagues. You're going to come across a lot of people in your career, mentors that you look up to, colleagues that stand beside you, and those that look up to you. And you can leave a legacy on each and every one of them through how you conduct yourself and how you have clarity on where you're going in your career and the impact that you have on them. So leaving a legacy is very important. And also be proud. I sometimes think as engineers, we can get beaten down by news and by topics of the day and perceptions out there. But being an engineer is such a privilege. Engineer, scientist, technician, technologist is such a privilege. And we need to, each and every one of us, be proud of it. And, wear it on our chest proudly, and ensure that when we talk of our profession, when we talk of our career and we talk about the journey we're on, we do it with pride. And we make sure that pride is something that we project, because it's up to us to ensure that the profession is held in high esteem. And ultimately, you can be anything, good and bad. You have the opportunity, you have the potential to be anything you want to be, to make any difference you want to make, to leave whatever legacy you want to behind you, to change the world. You can do that. But equally, you can do that negatively as well. Very important for me that when you chart your career path, you understand that it's not limited to what you see around you at that point in time. And you need to expose yourself to as much as you can, as wide as you can, so that you can be anything you want to be. And I really believe that the potential for engineers from Africa, not just South Africa, but from Africa, the potential for African engineers to take concepts of ethics and integrity and even Ubuntu and export that across the world is so huge. The opportunities are so huge that we really can be anything we want to be. So that's very important. I found this graphic on the internet and I thought it was very useful. It's the top 10 reasons for being an engineer. And just to read it clockwise. Bottom left, while working as engineers earn high salaries. As I said, money motivates. They have an opportunity for rapid advancement in the companies. Not just in the consulting engineering profession, but if you look at major industries across the world, and not even across the world, in South Africa and Africa, you'll find engineers at almost every level in these organizations, driving decision-making and playing a very key role in those organizations. It's amazing to see. You collaborate with lots of other professionals. As engineers doing engineering work, we're at the heart of things quite often, and we do work with lots of other professionals. So that's quite an enlightening position to be in. We work to solve global problems. As I said before, making a difference, leaving a legacy, hunger, clean water, protecting the environment, improving the quality of everyday life, and poverty alleviation. Engineers are at the heart of it, finding the solutions to that, and going into the next couple of decades in Africa especially, it's going to be led by engineers. The upliftment of the continent and the bringing of the continent to the forefront in the global environment. It's going to be led by engineers, absolutely. And engineering allows you to use your creativity every day. Sometimes it might not feel like, especially when you're doing the same thing over and over again, but find ways to bring creativity into what you do while sticking to engineering principles. It's such an important part of enjoying the profession, enjoying what you do. I think we have that opportunity, and it's so vital. I'm sure all of you have experienced this, but the profession allows us to travel. It's amazing the places that you can go to. I travel a lot with my job, visiting clients, visiting project sites, visiting offices. And some of the places we go to are amazing. I said to somebody the other day, we have a couple of projects in the DRC, hydropower projects. And these are out in quite rural areas, but when you get there, I said to one person the other day, this must be what they based the movie The Black Panther on, because this looks like the waterfalls of Wakanda. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Which other profession will allow you to get out there and see something like that? Certainly not a lawyer or an accountant who's sitting in the office. It's amazing. And I can't think of too many other careers that allow you that opportunity. And that's a key thing. Put your hand up when you get opportunities to get out there and travel. You'll get to see so much more than another profession will allow you. And you also get a high level of responsibility. The things we design, the things we construct, or we supervise the construction of, are often very vital pieces of infrastructure, and that comes with a high degree of responsibility, and that's very important because it helps you grow very quickly in that level, and ultimately our impact on the world. Engineering has the greatest impact on the world. They're more than most other professions, if not all. And I truly believe that. And it's quite amazing when you think of it like that. So we asked the questions about who are you, why do you want to be that, and where can you go? We've also spoken about what can you be. I thought I would just put in a few pointers here, which I think are important, certainly from my experience of lessons that I've learned, how you can own your own personal career. And I thought it was very poignant. The first thing, and I think is very important, nothing happens by accident. Where you are in your career, where you work, the company you work for, who you're working with, nothing happens by accident. Where you are right now is a product of decisions you have made along the way to get to where you are right now. And it's important that once we understand that, and as we said, understand what really makes you and what has made you who you are, understand that nothing happens by accident. You are where you are right now as a result of the decisions you've made along the way to get there. And also very important to understand is that you've got to have an inquiring mind. It is absolutely key to your growth as an engineering profession. Having an inquiring mind, being curious as to how things work, or asking why things are done in a certain way is very important. As I said earlier, there's a attitude in the engineering profession of wanting to impart knowledge back. Experienced professionals want to teach you. They want to give you the benefit of the experience. They want that experience to live on in you, the experience they've accumulated over time. You've got to have an inquiring mind. You've got to be curious. That curiosity is so important. And you've got to manifest it in a way that allows you to keep asking questions. To distill that to a single point, it's ask questions. Ask questions seeking knowledge, seeking to grow. It's very important. Look for answers. Seek out answers. You have to always maintain that curiosity. And you have to make sure that you get answers to questions that you ask. This points to you seeking mentors and mentorship, you seeking opportunities for learning and for growth. It's very important. You've got to ask questions. And seeking out mentorship is very important, both formal and informal. It's sometimes hard to work with a mentor. If you aren't open to constructive criticism. You've got to be vulnerable. You've got to allow yourself to be criticized in a way that helps you grow. You've got to face up to some of your own personal challenges and growth areas. And sometimes that can only be pointed out by somebody outside of your immediate circle. Where you're working right now, you might be in training programs for registration as a professional. You might be in mentoring programs. You would have technical mentors on projects that you're working on. Ultimately, you've got to be open to it. You've got to be open to the process. You've got to seek out mentorship. Sometimes I found with the young engineers who come in, they are waiting to be mentored. They're waiting for somebody to give them mentorship. And there will be opportunities for that. But those engineers that I've seen who have grown quicker, who progressed faster, who lived up or realized their potential and then set the bar even higher quicker than others, have been those that have sought out mentorship. And not just the formal internal within the company mentorship, but informal as well. I have a number of young engineers, scientists, technicians, and technologists from across the continent and the world that reach out to me once in a while, just wanting advice, just wanting to bounce things off, and wanting to grow. And being vulnerable is key. You've got to be open to constructive criticism. And then passion. Passion is a word that we talk about all the time. It's a often used term. But understand your passion and be open to continuously reassessing your reasons for doing something in a certain way and course correct when required. The thing about passion is that it is never a static, it's a dynamic thing. And as you grow, as you experience more in life, as you experience more in your career, in the company you're in, or in the profession through CESA and YPFs or CESA or other voluntary associations where you interact with others, the direction into which your passion is taking you will change. But be open to that. You must understand at any point in time what's driving you, and be open to the fact that a year, 2, 5 down the line, that drive might take you in a different direction, and that's okay. That's okay. But understand it. Don't be a robot. Don't just go through life, go through months. Time flies very quickly. It's already mid-September. Before you know, it's going to be the end of the year, and that's 2022 done, right? And looking back, when you sit and do your review of your life and where you are, you don't want to look back and think, oh, God, it's almost like autopilot. And for me, what's key to that is understanding your passion. When you understand your passion, and you're always looking for that to evolve, you'll figure out how to get yourself on the progressive track and how to continue to grow. And that comes to being open to change. The same, as I said, for figuring out your passion and being open to the fact that that can evolve over time, means being open to change. Most young professionals' goal is to register as a professional engineer. Young engineers' goal is to register as a professional engineer. And the pathway to registering as a professional engineer, or even your pathway to achieving your goal, that is a different one for you depending on where you are. It's never going to be a straight line. It's going to go like this. But if you're moving in the right direction, allow yourself to be open to be flexible, but remain focused. Being flexible to me is very important, especially when you're young. When you're young, you're dead set on something and you're following the path that you've been told, but that others have followed, or that the company is prescribing for you if you want an internal mentorship or professional registration program, or somebody that you know within your community or your circle that has done it a certain way, and you want to follow that, and you tend to see any deviation from that as a setback or a failure. No, be open to change. Stay focused on your goal, but be open to change and be open to the path not being a straight line, and stay flexible. And I think very importantly, identify and understand your core values. Those core values, the thing that inside of you, that that line you just won't cross. or the reason for doing something, or what resonates with you based on your family upbringing or your community upbringing, or what has motivated you to get to where you are. Distill that into values and understand it. Identify it and understand it. Then, when you've got that, seek out those mentors, those colleagues, those buddies, and ultimately an employer that resonates with you. Seek that out, because that makes the journey much more rewarding. And it makes some of what I've said, on this point, makes it easier to do and not as difficult. If you're in a environment or in a business where it is feeling like lots of hard work to make progress, go back, look at your core values, identify them. And then how do you identify the people you're working with, the people that are working beside you, or the employer that you're working for? How does that resonate with your values? And then find that might explain why it's so hard, because there's a dissonance there. And that makes the journey more difficult. Whereas the opposite side of the equation is when you find one that resonates with you, it makes the journey much more rewarding. So I think it's a very important point, and I would encourage all young engineers, scientists, technicians, technologists to actually spend some time doing that and figuring out what those are. And then also, it took me a long time to learn this myself, because I saw failure as just that. Don't be afraid to fail. But fail to learn, don't learn to fail. Failure is a key component of growth. We are going to fail at some point in your life. It's something you're trying to do. Could it be a professional work-related goal, a personal goal, a resolution we've set for ourselves, or something of that nature? We are going to fail at some point. Don't be afraid of it, but learn from it. If you keep failing at the same thing over and over again, well, that's a problem. It means you're not learning. All you're doing is learning to fail. Failure is a key part of your growth, and don't be afraid of that journey, but make sure you learn from it and course correct. Change, evolve. When you're learning a new skill, when you're learning a new type of discipline, working in new discipline, engineering, or something of that nature, you're going to have more bad days than good, certainly in the beginning. But don't be afraid of it. And if you've figured out your core value, you've surrounded yourself with people that resonate with that, failure then is sort of celebrated in a way, because it means now you're learning. And when I talk about business and managing a business like CESA, failure for us is just a step closer to success. Repeating failure is a sign of our own failings, but failure is a step closer to success. And the other thing that's very important is, you have to make decisions. You must always try and make decisions on the basis of what you know and not on the basis of what you don't know, but ultimately you need to make a decision. And that applies to many things in life, and especially in your career. When you're at that point of having to make a decision, make sure that you got enough information as you can, and try and gather as much insight, inputs, and advice as you can in making a decision. But make a decision. Sitting on the fence is no way. Make sure you make decisions. It's very important. The one person, the one aspect that will never lie to you is your gut feeling. But your gut needs to be educated. Your gut needs to grow. Your gut needs to gain the benefit of experience. And that's where your own journey of growth, mentorship, curious mind, asking questions, exposing yourself to different experiences and colleagues. And that's where that comes in and becomes very important. Developing that gut feel so that your gut is more educated. Because as I said, it doesn't lie to you, but if you haven't taught it enough, it doesn't have enough information, That's very important. And making a decision on the basis of what you know is so important. But again, don't be afraid to fail, but fail to learn, don't learn to fail. And then finally, and this is where I'm going to finish up now, you must have fun along the way. If you are progressing in your life and in your career and in your journey, as a young engineer, as a professional, as someone progressing up into management, you've got to have fun. You've got to find fun. And there's a lot of joy in simplicity, in the simple things. And we often take these simple things for granted, but there's a lot of joy in simple things. And from my personal experience, the times when I found things very difficult is when I've forgotten to actually find the joy in the simple things. Coming into the office, smiling at my staff, or talking to my staff, or spending some time with the youngsters, just having a catch-up. To me, at times when I'm very busy and have a lot on my mind and dealing with lots of issues, can be something that I don't take enough seriousness in. But I realize more and more that the joy that I need to find in those simple things actually is what brings the fun in our career, certainly in mine. We are in an industry where we have such a key responsibility and for generating the future we want to see. But we also are in an industry where we need to make sure we have fun doing it, so we can deal with tough times and good times in the same way. And stay true to what our purpose is and stay true to what our objectives are. I hope that I've given you some insights into myself and some insights into how I view the journey of development in your career. Of course, you cannot answer every question, but I think we have a Q&A session coming up, and I'm happy to chat to you all and share some knowledge if I can. But ultimately, I want to leave you with one concluding part. One of the fundamental philosophies that we have in MACPSO Southern Africa is that we espouse African excellence. We are not South African, we are not Namibian, we're not Zambian, we're not Congolese, we're not Botswana. We're African, all of us, me, you, black, white, brown, male, female, we're all African. And African excellence for us is at the root of what we do. And that applies to engineering, it applies to the way we manage our business, and it applies to what we do to give back. And it's amazing, everywhere I go within the countries that we operate, and I talk about the concept of Ubuntu, it is universal. Amazing, it's universal. Whether you're in Zambia, you're in the Congo, you're in Namibia, you're in Botswana, or South Africa, the concept of Ubuntu, it's so amazing. And as engineers, if we can never lose sight of that fact and that concept in doing what we do, I think that the future of the continent and the future of our profession and your future is secure. And I encourage you all to keep espousing those qualities and to always seek to have a positive impact of what you do, to seek out strong mentors, and in time to mentor people along the way and ultimately give back to develop the communities within which we operate and to leave a legacy. And while doing all of that, have a great deal of fun. And I think you'll find that this is a wonderful career. That's it from me. Thank you, and I look forward to the questions.
Wow. Absolutely phenomenal, Vishal. Thank you so much for that. I think while we're still digesting what you've taught us, we'll be getting our questions ready. But I think you touched on so many important things, passion, seeking, curiosity, the psychology of what it actually takes, as well as seeking mentorship. I think these are all elements that we can all really and truly take from. And thank you so much for your time. I think you definitely wore your lecturing hat today, because you've really given us a lesson, a lesson in what it really takes to determine our career path. I think more than anything now, this is the perfect time for us to go into the Q&A session. In good CESA fashion, I think I'll kick it off and, maybe see how it can go from there. The one question I do have for you, especially because of how you started off the session. You really reflected, you did a lot of introspection and you challenged us to do the same. What kind of mental fortitude did you have to develop to realize that, I need to look at myself. I need to sit down with myself and really ask the hard questions and be honest about the answers. We live in a time of social media where we're externally influenced. How is your internal scorecard so well developed, so well rounded? I'm thoroughly impressed. I'm sure you can see.
You flatter me, Swisha, and I'll tell you why. And I'm going to be very honest. I had a chip on both shoulders. As a student, I was very political. And I had a very much a victim mentality. I always felt things were happening to me. It's happening to me. This guy did that, that person did that, or this company did this. And when I started working, I went into the CESA and then joined a consulting firm. I didn't lose that because I hadn't reflected, introspected. I just been, as I said, been a product of my upbringing. I was in a environment where I grew up, where I was exposed to talk of injustice and talk of prejudice and talk of this and talk of that, and how the opportunities were denied and so on. When I got to the working world, I had that mentality driving the things I was saying, the decisions I was making. And I wouldn't hire me. I wouldn't hire me now as I was then. But it took experience of me realizing, especially when I left a company. I resigned from the company early on in my career, a year or two in. And I went up to my manager at the time and I said, I'm leaving. He shook my hand. He said, thank you very much. See you. I went back and I thought to myself, wow, geez, this guy didn't think much of me. But I still had that victim mentality. But it took me quite some time. And this is why I'm sharing this reflection, because I wasted a couple of years. It took me quite some time to realize that actually the biggest victim, I was playing the victim more than was the actual victim, because I had not lost the prejudices of what I thought was happening to me. And I had those chips on both shoulders that were weighing me down. And that was like a red beacon over my head all the time, because I was stifling my career. I was not growing. I wasn't exposing myself to mentors because I had this attitude that, what are you going to teach? What can you teach me? What can you teach me? That kind of thing. And I was my biggest worst enemy. But it took me some internalizing, but also some external mentorship. And that's why I said you've got to be prepared to receive some hard truths when you really, for real mentorship, for people to sit me down and say to me, you know what, you're the problem. It's not the system, it's not the company, it's not your education, it's nothing, it's you. You're the problem, and it's your attitude and your perspective on what you are owed that's the problem. And I had to deal with that through quite some time. But what I found is, once I dealt with that, I then unleashed within myself my true potential, my true ability at an exponential level. And that helped me grow and develop ultimately to where I am today. But in many ways, I'm only starting my journey where I am today. This is the start of my journey, not the end. And that's how you must see your career at every point. When you reach a milestone, that's the start of the next goal and the next objective. So yeah, 2 chips on both shoulders. Took me a long time to lose it. And I had to get some harsh words for that to happen. And I want the guys on the line to realize that you shouldn't go through the same experience I went through. Introspect all the time so you figure out figure out who you really are and figure out your way to success.
Wow, even that answer in itself was so complete. Thank you for that. I think, without taking too much more of me asking questions, I'll go to the chat box and read some of the questions we have for you. Yeah, we've got a question from Masikwini. Is there any book that you have published or read to improve your career? And do you have any book recommendations that you would suggest for him or us to better our engineering career?
It's a very good question. I read a lot. I'm a voracious reader. I love to read autobiographies, which gets my family highly miffed because that's all I'm buying, other people's stories. But what I find is autobiographies give me an insight into the decision-making processes that people have gone through. And this is talking about major companies like Nike and Apple and so on and so forth, the decision-making processes. And these are not books written by others on the outside. It is written by the person that lived the experience. And I can share that list, share a list with CESA, which can be put up on this chat later. But in business at the moment, there's an author that we use within our business quite a bit called Jim Collins, who's written quite a few books about business, which I find are very useful. But I wouldn't prescribe a book or another. What I would say to those online listening is you need to read as much as you can. There is no one book that's going to give you an answer or give you a clarity on purpose and so on. You need to read as much as you can and start off by reading books by people that you can relate to. So Trevor Manuel was a civil engineer, for example, right? Trevor Manuel, Minister of Finance. I don't know what he is now. He's on the outs from the sounds of it, but Trevor Manuel was Minister of Finance, but he was a civil engineer. So his training, undergrad training, was a bit in civil engineering. Then he went into the movement and then he went into finance, but he's written a book or two, which is very insightful. And even others like trade union movement leaders, business leaders in South Africa. Expose yourself to as much as you can, read as widely as you can. And if you can't stomach reading books, read as many magazines and articles as you can on leadership and on career and on people's experiences. One thing I don't like reading books where people are telling you what to do. I mean, because then, you know, you try everything. You try this, try that, and try that. What I like to read is people's experiences. What did they think? What did they consider when reaching a decision on why did they do something? That to me is more insightful than reading books on do this, do that, do this, do that. And that would be my advice. But I can share some books with you guys to put up later.
Yes, please. Thank you so much for that. We'll go to the Q&A session, well, the chat box that we have here as well. I hope, Masikwini, your question was answered there. Moving on to Moshiburi, how do you balance asking for help versus seeking out answers and conducting research yourself? Interesting.
That's a very interesting question. And it's a hard one to answer because, again, it goes back to what I said about internal value, resonating with the people around you, resonating with the company you're in, and resonating with the environment you put yourself in. A curious mind means you ask a lot of questions. Now, asking a lot of questions should never be seen as a negative. Of course, if you ask questions to a person that doesn't want to give answers or sees it as aggressive or thinks you're asking the question because you don't want to do the work kind of thing, that can be seen as a negative. I would say it's always with how you ask the question. It's always with how you put out the fact that you're seeking knowledge. I think I said earlier in the presentation of the talk that I gave that the attitude that you have about wanting to learn and grow, that attitude is very easily seen from the outside. That type of person that is curious, not wants to dig into stuff to find a flaw, but is curious to understand how something works. That attracts a lot of willingness from people to share. And as I said, I believe most, if not all engineers, senior engineers, even those retired or close to retirement, want to teach, want to impart knowledge. And they will seek out those people that genuinely want to ask questions and learn. And my only advice would be, if you've had a bad experience, don't give up. Evolve. Go to the next person, ask the next one, ask the next one. Eventually, you'll get the answers you seek, and you will find out who resonates with what you want to achieve and how you put it across, and then you'll find that that good mutual benefit. So just keep asking, don't give up.
Moral of the story, just keep asking. Perfect, perfect. We've got another question from Lungile. So Lungile says, thank you, Vishal, for the great presentation. I definitely agree. My question today is, as a junior engineer in the consulting industry and mostly based in the office, how best can one build or get field experience in the engineering field? All right.
Yeah, look, without knowing where you are, what specialty you're in, what company you're working in, it's a difficult question to answer. I had the same problem when I was a young graduate working in a research environment. When you are an undergraduate engineer, you think engineering is out there. You're either digging, building a building, or building a bridge, or watching people build a road, or whatever. It's not in the office, even though that's where you design. If there are no opportunities for you to go to site, and I'm assuming that you've put your hand up already and you've said, I want to go to site, I'm willing to learn. Can I tag along with an engineer who's heading out for a site inspection or heading out for a site meeting or whatever it is? If you've already asked those questions and put your hand up and showed that willingness to want to have that experience or tag along and nothing's forthcoming, then seek out opportunities to either second yourself or ask the company to second you to a project that has that opportunity within your company or outside, or even with the client, and do that through the company that you're working with at the moment. It's not always easy to put everyone who wants to go to site on site, but I know who's really willing. I see the hands that go up, and those are like, it'd be nice if I could go to site, but I'll see, and must be close to home, and it must be this, it must be that. Sometimes you got to put yourself into a situation that challenges you, and you got to demonstrate that willingness to achieve your objective, to take a little bit of discomfort, to take a little bit of sacrifice, because it's in the achievement of the greater good for yourself. And again, it's about willingness and putting your hand up. But if you can't find the opportunity where you are, then try to seek out the opportunities through your company. I'm not telling anyone to jump ship or anything, but through your company, seek opportunities to second yourself out, whatever. That's what I did as an undergraduate, as a young graduate engineer. And it certainly was a boost to my career back in those days.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for this nugget of wisdom once again. We've got another question here from Bonolo. How do you still make time to volunteer in industry organizations such as CESA and manage to lead the oldest consulting engineering firm in South Africa? How do you maintain a good balance and prioritize? That's a great question, Bonolo.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I must be very clear in that I cannot take credit for the management or the growth of my company alone. The success of any business is collective. It's never singular. So I have a fantastic team who I've worked with for a long period of time. Trust underpins our relationship. So there's a lot of trust in our objectives, and we're all aligned with what we're trying to achieve. That allows me then to have some time to be able to do a little bit more. But it is an ethos in our company as well. All my senior people are industry body members in their various countries. Whether it's within countries, Namibia, Botswana, Zambia, DRC, whether it's global bodies like FIDIC, it's something we strongly encourage, because I think it's absolutely vital that one of our key objectives and key underpinning norms in our business is to give back. And one of the ways we can give back is through membership or senior roles in voluntary associations and organizations. Yeah, she referenced 101 years old. That means we have a lot of knowledge in the business. We've got to impart that. It's pointless being around forever and then dying, and nobody has the benefit of that. And Knight Piso has a long history of having done that over its long tenure, and I certainly believe fervently in that. I won't lie, it is a challenge from time to time, but because it's a passion of mine, again, identify your passion, and it's one of my underlying values, it's very easy to do and balance.
Very easy to be balanced. That's a very interesting statement.
If you're passionate, if you know what your passion is and you know what your values are, then finding that balance is not difficult. The time you have a difficulty finding a balance is when you're doing something that you're not passionate about or that doesn't align with your values. Then you always feel in compromise, and that's what I meant.
Wow, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. That's brilliant. We've got another question here from Shimwe. Hi, Vishal. What do you do to constantly challenge your underlying beliefs and assumptions?
That's such a great question. And ultimately, it's the same answer to what I gave to how I'm able to do work at volunteer associations. You cannot have around you yes men. You cannot have around you cookie cutter people. You've got to have a mix of different backgrounds, different values, not value systems, but different upbringing and cultures and so on. Because even though everyone's aligned with what you're trying to achieve, you've got people that have different perspectives, and different perspectives are very important. Sometimes we all have blind spots, and I often have a lot of blind spots as well. And I find that having a diverse team around the management of our business, and a diverse team, even in my personal life, having friends and colleagues that are not all like me, but different. I identify with their values, but their perspectives are different. That's so important to helping me stay grounded and helping me challenge my own perspectives and things from time to time. And I'm also willing and open to change. As I said, it's very key for me that decisions are made, but you make decisions on the basis of what you know. So the process of figuring out what you know is by finding out as much as you can. And finding out as much as you can means getting different perspectives. And sometimes that results in me changing my view on things. You cannot be hard and fast in this fast-changing, dynamic world. You've got to be open to change. And I think diversity and having a diverse collection of views around you, professionally and personally, which also talks to mentorship, being open to criticism and being vulnerable, is key to growth, and it's key to decision making.
I must say, I really love the golden thread between your presentation and your answers. I think there's so many elements that really just resonate with one another and support each other. So thank you for that. I think we've got one more question here. I haven't seen any others. We'll just hopefully see if people get inspired. But yes, we've got one from Moshiburi again. Thank you for all the nuggets of wisdom. What would you say is the biggest lesson you have learned over the course of your career?
Yeah, I mean, every day brings a new lesson. Every decision and then the consequences of the decisions bring new lessons. But what I've really learned, the biggest thing I've learned is trust is key. Trust is earned. Trust can be lost very quickly. And you sometimes trust the wrong thing, or you trust the wrong people, and it happens. It's part of failing to learn. But ultimately, what I've learned at the end of the day is that if you understand what you're about and what your values are, and you know what you're passionate about, and you see that in the people that you bring around you, the people that you put into key roles and positions, you see those resonating things, then the trust comes automatically, because you don't trust, you trust in their heart the rationale, the decisions or the reasons for the decisions they make. And you don't react to how they make it or what they say about it. You actually trust the motive. And I've learned that over the hard way and the good way, that ultimately, at its heart, trust is key. And when you build trust over years through relationships, and again, it's not just professional, it's personal, you begin to see things in a different way. You don't overreact. You don't react to just what people say. You don't react to how they said it. You begin to see what they mean. And when you begin to see at the heart of what people mean, that is underpinned by trust. And that's been the toughest lesson, because it's been learned with some pain and some tears at points, but also the most important lesson. And ultimately, success in life and success in business is about trust. And I believe wholeheartedly in that. And I believe that that underpins how I view things going forward.
Wow. Well, it looks like your answer did inspire some more questions. So I hope you still have some energy to answer them for us, Vishal. We've got one here from Gerald. How do you see the future of civil engineering? Well, the industry specifically, given the state of the economy?
Yeah, I mean, every year I have a different answer to that question, depending on what's happening at that point in time. But let me give you my optimistic answer. The biggest chance our country has to achieve our objectives of poverty alleviation, bringing dignity to our people, and I'm talking South Africa now, but this applies by implication to Africa, but I imagine the questions about South Africa. Poverty alleviation, dignity to our citizens, education for all our youngsters, and and the impact that has on the future. The biggest role players in that are engineers and the engineering industry. Absolutely, without a doubt, 100% believe that. And the biggest drivers for rebuilding the economy is engineers. And everyone says that in some way or the other. Government always talks about infrastructure investment and the drive of economic development and so on. But economic development and poverty alleviation and job creation and educational development is so key. But ultimately, I see the role of the industry in that as absolutely vital. And us as the engineering fraternity, we've got to lead that initiative. We've got to drive it. We've got to do it with passion, and that's why I said you've got to be proud of what we do. So many engineers I talk to, it's like, yeah, I'm doing engineering. Yeah, I'm an engineer. Yeah, but I'm trying to get into banking. I'm trying to get into management consulting. Or I'm waiting to immigrate. I mean, like, why are you in this profession then? If that's what this is a stepping stone to you to get to somewhere else, because that's where your passion really lies. And if we get that passion driven properly across all levels of the engineering fraternity, we get that passion in high schools for maths and science, for youngsters wanting to get into this career because they're passionate about its role in changing the circumstances of our citizens in the country. The role of the engineering fraternity and the impact of engineers in this country is going to be guaranteed and guaranteed positively. And I hate the fact that we've been almost relegated to the same level as in the procurement system as people selling toilet paper or people selling any article that you want. Engineers should be a cut above. We are the experts in what we do. We are meant to be holding the utmost integrity. We're meant to be having the key developmental goals of our country and the continent by implication at heart. And that's the role that we have to play. That's what I see. And it comes down to the youngsters, we're talking to the young engineers on the line. You guys are actually the key drivers for the future of this industry. You guys in the next 10, 20, 30 years are going to be the titans of the industry. And you need to be very clear in your mind, why are you in this game? And what do you want to achieve being in this game? And if you want to use this as a stepping stone to something else, then please step out quickly and create space for those who have the real passion and drive to make a difference, because I believe we can, and I believe you can. So I hope that you guys on the line on this webinar and whoever listens to it down the line actually realize that you are the future of this country and you have the role to play. And don't wait for somebody to tell you what that is. Go out there and do it.
Yes, it's important that we are mad, make a difference. I'm still going to take that with me for the rest of my days. I think we have time for one more question. And then after that, I think we'll just wrap it up. So once again, thank you so much for your time and your commitment to answering these questions. The last question here is from Charlene. So Charlene says, you mentioned that you currently would not hire the young graduate version of yourself. Would you say that the quality of young grads in the profession right now are somewhat more acceptable, or in general, is there something lacking? So she says that, I know generalization is dangerous, but please humor me just for this question.
It's a dangerous question to ask. So I have been a lecturer, a part-time lecturer at university, and I last taught 12, 14 years ago. So my exposure to undergraduate engineers those days were very different. But I currently have a number of engineers that are on bursaries with Knight Pisold who will be joining us soon. So I've been able to, gauge the quality. And I don't think the quality of our engineering graduates have deteriorated. But when I was a young engineer undergrad, and I spoke to the guys that were engineers 10 and 20 years before me, they had a different view on the profession and their role in the profession. Granted, it was very different country back then, and it was very white and all of that stuff. But when you spoke to how they viewed the profession, they saw it as a privilege. They saw it as a huge responsibility. When we came to university, this is 25, 30 years ago now, we saw it as this excitement, right? Because it's a new world opening up. And we can go out there and build and design. I'm not entirely sure, because I haven't got the details, I'm generalizing, not entirely sure what the young engineers of today, the young undergrads or grads of today, what they see the future be in front of them be. And I'm not talking about the quality of the teaching, I'm not talking about the quality of the engineering and so on. I'm talking of the mindset, the mentality, because that's what I look at. The rest of it, if you've got an aptitude for maths and science, we can develop you into anything. It's the mindset, the mentality. Why are you in this profession? What do you want to do with it? What examples have you been using as your benchmark? Because if I look at the last 10 years, we've had some bad examples of what to look at and why to get into the industry. That's where I would be careful and a bit want to know a little bit more about grads and so on as to what motivates you to get into this field and what do you want to do with this degree of yours and where do you see your obligation, your role going forward. In a general answer, I don't think the quality of engineers have deteriorated. And there's many schools of thoughts on that, but I think anyone with a willing mind, a reasonable aptitude in maths and science can be developed into a great engineer. I don't think there's any issue there. Having said that, Knight Pisold is a high performance team. We only take the best. We're very particular. It's about attitude. It's about personality as much as it is about results. Your results at university don't determine your career progression necessarily. The correlation is not one-to-one. But it is an indicator of your ability to apply yourself. I encourage all young engineers who are studying to sign up for the BCE. The BCE at CESA, the course, is so vital in imparting knowledge to young graduate engineers or engineers on their journey to develop themselves. And it's such an important tool that I always encourage youngsters, and I've put a lot of my staff through that, to sign up for that if they have the opportunity through their employers. But coming back to the question, I think I'm more interested in what the motivation behind our young engineers and young grads are, and how they see their role going forward in the industry and their role in the future of engineering. And if those answers are different they will be different, but if they're significantly different to what it was when I was a young graduate, which I know was different to what it was when the older generation that came before us were young graduates, and we track that, we might get a very good indication of where the industry is going. I have a lot of optimism. I'm very positive about our industry and where we're going. And I think we have people that are very conscientized to responsibilities and so on. I just think we need to make sure that there's no gaps in people realizing their role in developing the industry. So I haven't really answered the question because I'm trying not to, but I think at the end of the day, I think we're a country full of fantastic youngsters with great potential. They just need to realize that they have that ability to make a difference.
That was the best display of being politically correct in an answer I've ever seen. So thank you so much for that. Yes, I think we've come to the end of our session today, and it has been a memorable one, definitely for me. I hope it has been for everybody else here. I'd really like to thank you, Vishal, for giving us your time, imparting your knowledge, and really inspiring the youth, because honestly, the onus is on us now. You've given us the tools and you've said it in words that we can understand, concepts that are not new to us. We just need to apply them. Who are we? What do we want to become? And why do we want to become that? That is a good point of inflection for all of us to reflect on. I'd also like to take this time to really thank CESA, because without CESA, this wouldn't have been possible. We're all part of this body, and it's so amazing to see that all of us are volunteering to spend this time together and really grow from it. Only greatness can come from this. From my side as Special Material Facilitator, it has been an absolute honor. I really hope I get to do this more often. It would be a great pleasure of mine. I don't know, Vishal, do you have any parting remarks, any last words that you'd like to share? Please feel free, and then I'll maybe hand over to Bonolo and find out if there's something she'd like to say. But to answer a quick question, Ian, we do have a recording, and I believe that there will be communications for where we could possibly view this if we really want to come back and re-digest these nuggets of wisdom. So yes, Vishal, any parting remarks?
Yeah, just to echo what you said, thanks for facilitating the session, Svesha, and to CESA, as always, for sharing these platforms to allow us to share our knowledge. If I can leave, everyone online with one piece of final parting words, it would be just make sure that you understand why you're doing what you're doing, whatever it is in life. Make sure you understand why you're doing what you're doing, and make sure you understand whether the reason for you doing something, whether that matches up with your internal value system. I think it's very important and very key that you are clear on what your internal value system is, and that you make sure you give yourself the best chance to be the best version of yourself. Don't self-sabotage yourself. Don't do pity parties. Don't feel sorry for yourself. You are your best motivator. You don't need me or Swesha or any YouTube, TikTok star, or whatever it is to come and tell you how to be a better version of yourself. You're already a winner because you're an engineer or an engineering grad. You already have an advantage. Don't squander it. Make the best of it. Give your best at all times. Work hard. And ultimately, you will be successful. And I wish you all the greatest success in your careers. Night Peacehold is everywhere, and we are around. If you want to chat, if you want to engage, you can reach out to my team, reach out to myself through CESA or directly, and happy to share whatever you need to. We are hiring, but we only hire the best. So make sure if you want to apply, you are your best version of yourself. You might make it. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. We will really take note of that. Bonolo, Blessing, would you like to add anything before we close? All right, I'll take that as a no. So yeah, from me and the team from CESA, we'd like to thank everybody for attending. Once again, Michelle, thank you for your time. And I hope you have a great rest of the afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Cheers.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Asha. Cheers.